Welcome to the next generation of warfare, psychological warfare. In modern conflict, the mind is a potent weapon. Discover General Michael T. Flynn's groundbreaking guide, The Citizen's Guide to Fifth Generation Warfare. Unlock tactics, strategies, and the mindset to navigate this cognitive battlefield that we all find ourselves in. Equip yourself against manipulation and emerge unscathed. Unleash your potential. Order now.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the AlphaWarrior Show. It is Wednesday night. It is July 15th, 2026, which means it is Operation Gladio night. Chapter 104, Operation Snow White, episode 575. Pretty stoked about tonight's show. When I looked into it, I said, I said, I'm gonna keep an eye on who reacts to tonight's show, see if I can answer some questions. So if you guys have no idea what it is, stand by. You guys are gonna enjoy it. But before we do that, let me get to some of the amazing people that allow me to do this show for free. And when we come back, it's Gladio time.
Science proves that a healthy immune system is the body's first defense against the smallest of ailments to the most catastrophic. Coriolus versicolor is the most sought-after, all-natural supplement for both humans and pets to help boost the immune system. There are over 400 studies worldwide on its effectiveness in humans, including Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, MD Anderson Cancer Center, and now from the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine. Together, we can help reverse this terrible tide now plaguing your loved ones and give them the immune-boosting supplements that they need.
MyPillow's second annual mega sale is finally here. Get our patented premium MyPillows that adjust to your exact individual needs to give you the best sleep of your life.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
Now for the lowest price ever. Kings, $19.98. Queens, only $18.98. And Giza Dream Bed Sheets, the best sheets in history, for as low as $29.98. Lux Pure 6-piece towel sets, towels that actually dry you. What a concept. Now only $39.98. And our made in the USA mattresses and mattress toppers as low as $99.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of our second annual mega sale. But that's not all. Order right now and we'll ship your order absolutely free.
I saw one of you guys bring out California's gone full communist with the rolling blackouts. Let me tell you, folks, I'm here in SoCal. It is 6 p.m. and it is 110 degrees. As a matter of fact, as I bring the Colonel on, I was telling her, Colonel, I need to find me a state where there's no hurricanes, where there's no tornadoes, and where the temperature tops out at 90. And she's like, they don't make those. Thank you for being with us, Colonel.
Oh, no, you added you don't want any snow either.
Yeah, no crazy. Well, I don't mind snow. Not the crazy snow. I don't want none of that.
That's like fairy tale land. Oh, you could go to Hawaii.
Doesn't Hawaii get hot?
No, I mean you always have the ocean.
No, they got a volcano though. No.
You didn't say no volcanoes.
No, I ain't trying to be like Pompeii. Like, nah, nope.
Okay, well they don't make any.
I don't mind the ground shaking a little bit. I can handle that. It is just, it's hot. It is so hot. And then I got all these lamps right now. Just so you guys can understand what I feel like right now. And Colonel understands. I think she has lights now. I feel like a chicken nugget in the little heating machine at McDonald's. That's what I feel like right now. I just feel like it's just hot.
Okay, so you obviously have not heard my horror story from my vacation.
No.
So we pulled out of here 2 hours into our, I don't know, 1,000-mile trip. And the generator on our RV started smoking. So for those of you who don't know, I have a fairly big RV that requires the generator to run the air conditioning while you're driving. No generator, no air conditioning.
Oh, man.
We drove approximately 11 hours to Nashville. We stayed the night in middle Georgia and had to change where we were staying because we were originally just going to boondock at a place it's a peach packing place because I love buying their peaches in the summertime. We ended up having to make emergency RV reservations so we could actually plug in and have air conditioning overnight. And then we drove another 6 hours to Nashville, no air conditioning, and to Knoxville, no air conditioning, and then all the way home, no air conditioning.
Ooh.
Yeah, you get no. So about 3 hours, about 4 hours from home, something happened with the turbo part of our diesel pusher, and we couldn't go above 45.
Oh, goodness.
And about halfway home, my husband says, "You know what? We're towing the truck. Maybe it'd be better and if we just disconnected it and you drive behind me." And I started laughing and I went, "Oh, you want me to drive the air-conditioned truck while you sweat your ass off in the RV? Okay, pull over."
I'll take one for the team.
I'll take one for the team. Yeah.
What you should have said is, how long ago did you think about that plan? That's the question. Oh man, that's rough.
So you get no sympathy from me.
Yeah. I'm gonna go do a cold plunge after the show tonight. That's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Operation Gladio, Operation Snow White, how fitting.
So I'm constantly reading books. The book that I'm reading right now is called Spooks. It's written about all kinds of different intelligence agencies I didn't even know existed. And I didn't think that was possible at this point. Jim Hoogan wrote the book. And I have to tell you how I came across Operation Snow White, because it's definitely worth the 3 minutes it's going to take. So I'm reading like the first couple of chapters, and I come across Battelle, which we did a couple of stories on. I'm like, okay, I got that one. And then the next page, it's talking about, and it's probably going to be our next show, is called Intertel. Again, I've never heard of Intertel. And I'm like, okay, so I'm writing that one down. And in the same paragraph, it starts talking about how all of these corporations, which we knew, have their own intelligence function. And like IBM. Then I come across another one called Dector, Counterintelligence Company. So for those of you who do my book reviews with me, you know that I write notes all over these, because every time I come across a new one, I have to research it to find out what the background story is on it, so that the rest of the book makes more sense to me and I can put it kind of in my big Venn diagram. And so I turn the page, and it's talking about Robert Mayhew, who we talked about. He's the CIA guy that was not infiltrated, but worked inside of Howard Hughes's organization. And he contracted with the mafia for assassins for the CIA. And I'm like, okay, I'm tracking with this. And we get to Wackenhut, which we've already talked about. And he's talking about how some people that work in these organizations do it because they need to, like prior special forces guys that get off active duty or whatever, and they need to make money, and that's what their skill set is. But then he starts talking about a guy who could afford to pick and choose what he was doing. And his name is Richard Bast, B-A-S-T. And I'm like, well, that guy sounds interesting. What's his story? And that's where I started looking into Richard Bast. And so In the late 1970s and early 1980s, as the Church of Scientology faced mounting legal and public pressure, it turned to a Washington, D.C. private detective investigative organization that was led by Richard Bast. And they wanted to hire him to carry out a very aggressive investigation into their quote unquote enemies. So Scientology hires Bast. Well, what's Bast do for Scientology? Well, he creates basically propaganda smear campaigns against federal judges, and he creates elaborate undercover stings designed to neutralize any community where Scientology is being questioned. And it wasn't like freelance jobs. He actually starts basically running their entire counter intelligence operation for them. And he gets involved in what's called the Guardian's Office in Scientology. And basically what I did was go back and trace the history of the Guardian's Office in Scientology, along with Bast participation. The landmark Operation Snow White kind of is the crowning jewel of this counterintelligence operation that he runs for Scientology. But there's a whole bunch more. And it helped expose, when this all came to light, training methods that the Guardian Office agents were using, along with their central role in an organization called C Organization, like SEA, C Organization, and how these tactics compared to other professional intelligence agencies, because weirdly enough, they mirror CIA operations. So the Guardian Office specifically was created in 1966 by L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of Scientology. Its stated purpose, according to Hubbard, was to protect the church from what they view as external threats, handling legal matters, public relations, and gathering intelligence on any individual or organization that they deemed hostile to the Scientology church. In practice, it became their de facto intelligence and covert operation branch. Guess who got put in charge of the Guardian Office? Mary Sue Hubbard. That's his wife. The office was initially based at St. Hill Manor in not America, in England, in the UK. I find that extremely troubling.
Very interesting.
Yeah. It quickly developed into a sophisticated internal structure with its own bureaus for intelligence, legal affairs, and information collection. They actually organized it to look just like the CIA. It maintained a secret intelligence bureau at the top of its hierarchy and had embedded operatives in Scientology organizations worldwide. The Guardian Office operated with significant autonomy to do whatever it is that they deemed necessary, and was responsible for hundreds of covert actions against critics, journalists, government agencies, and medical organizations. They included infiltration, document theft, forgery, disinformation campaigns, psychological harassment, and economic sabotage. So let's talk a little bit about the C Organization, because it's very interesting. Many of the Guardian operatives, including those involved in major operations, came from the C organization. The C organization, I had already looked into a couple of years ago because it basically looks a whole lot like Jim Jones, with the owning of ships and training people on these ships. There are some overlaps to the religious organization that Jim Jones set up, and we know he was a CIA operative. So anyway, it was set up in 1967. C organizations basically were required to sign what Scientology called a billion-year contract, which symbolized their commitment across multiple lifetimes.
Interesting.
That sounds totally weird. They lived communally. They were put in very tight quarters on these ships. They were required to work 16 hours per day, 7 days a week, with basically, I mean, maybe a few dollars compensation. They weren't paid for this training. And very, very tight quarters. The organization used a strict hierarchical structure, and they even assigned a military-style rank system and included military-style discipline. The C organizations went through what they call intensive auditing. And if you're familiar with Scientology, the auditing thing is what many people who've left Scientology refer to as brainwashing. They also were taught ethics, which was more like a conditioning program. It was designed to enforce loyalty and detect disloyal thoughts. If this doesn't sound like MK Ultra, I don't know what does. So the practices included security checks, like multiple ones during the day, interrogative auditing sessions where they basically were sitting you down in a chair, like with the light bulb on you, going through interrogations for quote unquote disloyal thoughts. It served, because they took them out on ships, to disconnect them completely from their support system, their families, their friends. And basically, in the early years, they even used physical punishments like pushing people overboard into the open waters and scaring the shit out of them. The C organization provided disciplined ideological commitment for all of the personnel that the Guardian office needed for high-risk intelligence work. Many of the agents who infiltrated the government offices during Operation Snow White and carried out other dirty tricks were recruited primarily, almost exclusively, from the C organization members. The organization's culture and absolute loyalty, compartmentalization, and willingness to endure these hardships provided the perfect recruitment tool for covert operations. And again, another similarity to this that we've already researched is the Moonies of Reverend Moon that they used in covert operations in Latin America. You're going to see a lot of similarities here. So Robert Bast was, as we talked earlier, a DC private detective who ran International Investigations, Inc. It had earlier been called the Redex Corporation. He had gained notoriety in the early 1980s for all of this work that he did with Scientology. He was one of the first private detectives hired by Scientology during the period where they were aggressively targeting judges and local officials. And his firm handled surveillance, undercover operations, and information gathering tasks that basically mirror intelligence tradecraft. One of his most documented...
Real quick for that, since you brought up Redix, I found this. It's a declassified document now from the CIA. And I'll go to the top right here so everybody can see. Return to CIA, background use only. And it talks about the Lloyd Furs, but Richard L. Bass and Redix. And then when you go here to Richard L. Bass, it says Richard L. Bass, a Washington, D.C. private detective, gained notoriety in 1965 by turning up a missing witness previously unlocated by the Department of Justice in connection with Bobby Baker case. He is known to operate at least 4 enterprises: Capitol Bureau of Investigation, a private detective agency; Redix Vietnam Incorporated, a firm which imports a variety of commodities ranging from liquor to automobiles in South Vietnam, money laundering. Of late, U.S. recruited go-go girls from Saigon nightclub. He is planning human trafficking. Redix Corporation, a firm which sells almost anything to anybody abroad other than South Vietnam. And 4, Consolidated Armaments Incorporated, weapons trafficking. Like, I mean, it's all right there.
Yep. Is that crazy?
Wild.
And this is the guy that Scientology hires.
Wild.
So one of his most infamous operations was in 1980. And he targeted U.S. District Judge James Ritchie. U.S. District Judge. If you are going to run an op against a U.S. District Judge, you have no fear. He was presiding over a criminal trial of Mary Sue Hubbard and other Scientologists stemming from FBI raids on the church's office. Bass' team investigated the judge's personal life. They located, i.e. created, a prostitute who claimed Ritchie had paid for her services during a trip to Los Angeles. The investigators administered a lie detector test, videotaped her account, and gathered supporting details from hotel and restaurant employees. The material was leaked to New York Times columnist Jack Anderson, which should be a red flag, and appeared in newspapers across the country. Shortly afterwards, the judge resigned from the case, citing health reasons. The operation reportedly cost the church almost $500,000. Bass employee, retired D.C. police detective Frederick Kane, played a key role in finding all of the information. Another one in 1982 had to do with Bass orchestrating an undercover operation in Clearwater, where Scientology had established its flag land base. Local opposition and public inquiry into the church's activity had created problems in the local area of Clearwater. Bass operatives posed as emissaries of a wealthy European industrialist interested in investing $100 million in downtown Clearwater. They lured prominent local businessmen onto a yacht and attempted to pressure them into shutting down the public inquiry, framing it as a condition for the investment. When the businessmen refused, the emissaries disappeared. Bass later admitted the operation in court, claiming it was designed to test whether the local elites were conspiring against the church. Bass' firm continued operating into the 1990s. It employed former law enforcement personnel and handled domestic surveillance and other investigative work. His name also appeared in congressional records alongside references to the Hunt family dispute in Dallas, suggesting possible involvement in private investigative matters connected to those cases. Now, let me just tell you what that was about, because that one's a crazy one too, not related to the Scientology, but there was a former FBI agent that had been hired by the Hunt family to run their intelligence and spying networks. And his name was Paul Rutherford. And he was he had been approached by Nelson Bunker Hunt, one of the Hunt, the patriarch's sons. And he asked Rutherford if he would work to set up an American version of the Brazilian death squads in America. And when the former FBI agent, chief of their security and intelligence organization, refused to do so, they fired him and then accused him of wrongdoing. Bast was involved in that as well. So definitely not a good guy. So let's move on to Operation Snow White. Bast was...
That just so you know, well, and there's two. There's Paul Rothermel and Paul Rothermel Jr. I don't know if it's the same character, but he shows up to the National Archives, not the junior, but the regular one, on the JFK assassination documents.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say he's not a good character, I find it very interesting that his name would populate in that search.
Yep. Yeah, all of these things tie together. I mean, because Hunt was very involved in the whole JFK because it happened in Dallas. That's where they lived. Yeah, so that doesn't surprise me at all, actually. So while Bast was carrying out these targeted operations, the Guardian office, ran by Mrs. Hubbard, was executing a multi-year program called Operation Snow White. It was launched in the early 1970s. Snow White was a massive criminal conspiracy to purge unfavorable government documents about Scientology and L. Ron Hubbard. The Guardian office infiltrated more than 136 U.S. government agencies, foreign embassies, consulates, and private organizations critical of the church across 30 countries.
Can I read something right here, since it ties in perfectly to what you're saying on the Operation Snow White? It says the Guardian's office was soon recruiting their own field agents, referring to the IRS, CIA, FBI, those guys, to infiltrate other government offices, including the DEA, the United States Coast Guard, the United States Coast Guard Intelligence Service, and I'll explain why I think why, and the National Institute of Mental Health, amongst others. DEA, Drug Enforcement Agency, Coast Guard Intelligence. Two things you would want to infiltrate if you're going to be doing trafficking of weapons, narcotics, or humans by the seas into this country. So this
Correct.
way you know if they're going after your boats or not.
Correct. And he has lots of boats. They had over 5,000 covert agents. 5,000 covert agents working for the Church of Scientology under the Guardian office. And as you just pointed out, their primary targets were the IRS, but operatives also penetrated DEA, Coast Guard Intelligence, the DOJ, and the American Medical Association, among many others. Methods included planting agents in jobs within targeted organizations to steal documents, set up wiretapping, forge documents, and committed burglary. The key figures were Mary Sue Hubbard, Jane Kimber, who was worldwide head of the Guardian office working for Hubbard, and operatives like Michael Meisner, Gerald Bennett Wolfe, and other L. Ron Hubbard. They named L. Ron Hubbard as an unindicted co-conspirator. Now, why that would be, I don't know. I mean, I understand, but he didn't give any testimony or anything like, he turned on his wife or anything like that. But I don't know why they didn't make him as part of this, because damn good and well his wife didn't run it without his knowledge. So as the operation, so the FBI, starts investigating, and as it unraveled, Michael Meisner, a key Guardian office operative, became disillusioned and cooperated and basically turned state's evidence. On July 8th, 1977, the FBI conducted a massive raid on the Scientology offices in Los Angeles and Washington, D.C. At the time, it was the single largest FBI raid in history. Agents seized thousands of documents that detailed not only Snow White, but many of their other operations. The raids provided the evidence that led to indictments of 11 high-ranking Scientologists in 1978. From 79 to 80, 11 Guardian office officials, including Mary Sue Hubbard, pleaded guilty or were convicted of charges including burglary of government offices, theft of government property, and obstruction of justice. Several received prison sentence. The seized documents did more than convict the Snow White conspirators. It exposed the entire scope of the Guardian office dirty tricks campaign. Is that crazy?
It is wild.
Why do we not know this?
So I was, as you're kind of going through this, I was just like, question number one, why'd the CIA go after them?
The CIA didn't. The FBI did.
Okay, I guess we'll separate them. Why did the government, I'll say this, why did the government go after them? And I think they see them as a threat. That they're not good guys. I'm not saying they're a threat because of that. I'm saying because they saw them as an entity that they couldn't control. So I'm sure that they probably tried.
They stepped over the line when they started raiding government offices. So they're fine as long as they're operating, doing whatever nefarious shit they're doing, to include getting a federal judge fired or resigned from a case. But they stepped over a line when they started breaking into IRS offices and
that's where I'm going. It's the government, the intelligence agencies showed they have the ability to detect infiltration.
Yes.
And that's a big deal, because I want everybody just to take pause for a second. Don't leave where we're at here, but there's another operation that we always talk about that's going on. Imagine how that operation had to be run to perfection in order to not be found, discovered, and destroyed like this one was. Just to give credence to how complicated that is, because here it is. They got caught. Like you said, they crossed the line, and there was consequences for that, because we're talking powerful people. Because if they controlled judges and this was like two war factions going after each other. I guess the best way to describe it, it was the white collar version of what we see with cartel bosses.
Yes. And what's funny is I remember there was an incident here a long time ago around the same time when the St. Petersburg Times, and for those of you who are not familiar with Central Florida, Clearwater is like right across the bridge from St. Pete. And the Tampa Tribune and the St. Petersburg Times are the two biggest newspapers in that area. So during this time, the St. Petersburg Times started reporting on the Scientology Church, and they have a huge compound here. As a matter of fact, Tom Cruise has a townhouse on their facilities here in the Clearwater area. And I know that only because my daughter's a big Tom Cruise fan, and she went walking in front of the Scientology complex, and one of the guards came out and asked her what she was doing there. I mean, they take their security very seriously, which is in and of itself weird for a quote unquote church.
We not because we were targeting them, we were actually running surveillance on something else, but we were working undercover. And these guys came and approached us. Obviously, they had no idea who we are because our plates are fake and all that with the vehicles they run. But I would gather they probably ran the plates through their system and said, "These aren't real plates. What are these guys doing out here?" It was a very interesting experience.
They take this stuff seriously. So anyway, St. Petersburg Times ran a series of exposés on the Scientology church during some of this same time frame. And they broke into the St. Petersburg Times headquarters, and they stole stationery, and they wrote fake letters posing as St. Petersburg Times officials in order to discredit the newspaper for writing those articles. And I remember that crystal clear because my dad was sending me clips out of the newspaper because it made it all the way over to our local newspaper. I mean, it was a huge scandal. And they found out that they had broke into the office and stole that stationery. They literally will stop at nothing to attack anybody that they view a threat. And not because you're actually a threat, because you're actually just exposing the truth. So anyway.
Have I ever showed you their facility here in Southern California? It's public information, so I'm not doxing or anything like that.
I've seen pictures of it because when we were investigating the Waco incident and we did those 2 videos about it, the Branch Davidian guy traveled to Los Angeles all the time. And
Los Angeles is the headquarters.
Yes.
But they have another facility that is extremely important in their realm of things. This one, let me show you guys real quick. So you guys know I'm in Southern California. Let me zoom out so you guys, Southern California, this big body of water here is the Salton Sea. And then out here, this is the Coachella Valley. This is where I live. This is that San Andreas Fault that you guys are worried about that you think is going to separate and turn us into an island. It's not. But when you drive the 10 west, you go into the city of Banning here, Moreno Valley. Well, you zoom in and there's a pass here that comes right through the mountains. And then right here, we see this big like crop circle looking farmland. And then when we zoom in, you're going to see this place off to the right called Gilman Hot Springs. This entire facility right here, this entire thing that you see on the map is all theirs.
And that's right up against the base of the mountain.
Right against the base of the mountain. And you see these fire roads that it has that goes into it. Mm-hmm. I've never been able to venture out, but I was told that they have another facility out here somewhere, something small. Obviously, you can kind of see this one, but this right here. And so just to give everybody an idea, this is this right here is a main road. They own both sides. I'm sorry. Right over here. Hold on, I'm getting lost. Yeah, okay. They own both sides. So this main road that cuts through, that's regular traffic can go through there. Well, we were actually doing surveillance on another car. That car ends up having a mechanical issue. So, of course, we're off doing our thing. And this is, I won't go into too much of the story because I don't know where that case is at now. But it generated them to come out and start investigating. So, again, this entire property right here, they're protected by a wash on this side. They're protected by the mountain range on this side. And this one road right here that travels and then takes you into town. This is for those of you who've heard of like San Jacinto, Murrieta. We used to call it, I've heard it's gone better, but we used to refer this as the meth capital of Southern California. This area out here.
But if you were going to set up a compound, you would set it up in a place that looked just like that.
100%. 100%.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So the FBI's seizures brought numerous other issues to light, to include targeting journalists and local officials. And one of the things that it brought up was a thing called Operation Freakout that happened in 1976. It targeted author Paulette Cooper, who had written a critical book called The Scandal of Scientology. The Guardian office launched a multi-phase campaign to frame her for bomb threats against the Scientology office. This included forging threatening letters, staging incidents, and psychological harassment intended to lead to her indictment, imprisonment, and commitment to a psychiatric hospital. Cooper.
Which Colonel? You remember earlier when you said that they had infiltrated the American medical establishments?
Yep.
They specifically infiltrated the mental health aspect of those facilities. Just want to let people know that with this.
Yeah, so they can get the people that they want to frame as psychologically. It sounds exactly the way the CIA operates, right? Exactly like it. So Cooper was indicted in 1973. The charges were later dropped, and the full extent of the Guardian organization involvement emerged during the seizure of documents from the Snow White raid. So this went on for years, where they harassed this woman, got her indicted, and they didn't even discover the actual operation until Snow White happened, and they did that massive raid on the compound. They also had, talking about the AMA, Operation Sore Throat in 1975. It involved infiltrating the American Medical Association. The Guardian office agents, including Michael Meisner, operating as Sore Throat. That was his call sign, a kind of a tongue-in-cheek to Deep Throat, gained employment at the AMA offices and leaked thousands and thousands of internal documents. The leak revealed that the AMA efforts against chiropractic doctors and caused significant embarrassment for the organization, though they also inadvertently provided evidence used by chiropractors in their antitrust lawsuit against the AMA. They were just trying to embarrass them. Operation Keeler and Operation Italian Fog both targeted Clearwater Mayor Gabriel Canzares, who had opposed Scientology's secretive arrival in the city. Operation Keeler involved staging a fake car accident and sending anonymous smear letters. Operation Italian Fog planned to plant forged documents in Mexican records to falsely accuse Cazares of bigamy. Both aimed to destroy his political career. They went to Mexico and they got fake documents to say he was married to another woman and accused him of bigamy. He's a mayor. Because he was they did basically what Paul Helliwell did for Disney and going into Orlando and secretly buying up. That's basically what they did. And the Clearwater mayor was basically very vocal in saying all of what you're doing is wrong. And they tried to frame him for bigamy. All right. Operation China Shop happened in 1970. 1975 was a busy year for them. He was, and weirdly enough, 1975 is the same year that the CIA was getting all of that grief in Washington, D.C. with all of those committee hearings. Operation China Shop was a plan to neutralize the Clearwater Sun newspaper, which had been critical of Scientology. A Guardian office agent infiltrated the paper using the cover name Molly Gillum and planted damaging information on the staff. The operation included attempts to pressure the newspaper's largest advertiser, which at the time was a department store called Moss Brothers. Moss Brothers is like the equivalent in Florida of like a Macy's. It was a very big chain and very nice stores. To withdraw their
Don't they own a bunch of auto dealerships?
No, Moss Brothers is a department store.
Oh, okay.
To withdraw their support in hopes of financial crippling and closing the paper. These operations, along with many others, involved forgery, surveillance, and character assassination, and all of them were documented in the seized files. So, instead of sending their agents to any formally accredited training academies, they actually produced their own internal training guides using documents that had basically been gotten for them by this guy, Bast, and several other intelligence training manuals. And the key component was what was called the intelligence specialist training routine. Agents were drilled to lie convincingly under pressure, learning to outflow false data effectively until they could do it smoothly. This skill was used to cover stories and infiltrate organizations and to provide false testimony when asked. Now, if you're a church, do you think it's okay, number one, to run your own freaking intelligence agency and infiltrate government offices? But do you think a church would actually teach people to lie credibly? Have you ever been in a church that has that kind of a motif? I've never been in a church that actually has part of their training program to teach you to lie.
It's supposed to teach you not to lie.
I'm thinking
if it's church, right?
If it's a church, does this sound anything like a church?
No, it just, someone in the chat said earlier, it sounds like the freaking CIA is what it sounds like.
It sounds like the freaking CIA disguised as a church. All right. There was a thing called the Information Full Hat course that trained operatives in intelligence terminology and concepts, including definition of espionage, counterintelligence, and structures. Like the FBI, MI6, MI5, they had trainee study books on brainwashing and taught Sun Tzu's Art of War. Practical skills included how to conduct surveillance, how to forge documents, how to wiretap, how to recruit people once you've infiltrated an organization, and creating false identities. Agents also received ideological conditioning through auditing and ethics conditions to overcome moral objections to illegal activities.
Can I interrupt here for a second? Because these are the scary loopholes when you teach us, and my brain goes back to the detective world that I belong to. These are the things that freak me out. So I'm going to share it so I can freak everybody out with me. As a detective, if I come across something where I think you are a person of interest or a suspect, and I want to get into your emails or your phone or your computer, I have to be able to provide probable cause to develop a search warrant to get this signed by a judge. But what if I know you're involved somehow, but I don't have probable cause? Judge is going to say, oops, so sorry, Detective Luna. Come back when you have probable cause. Now, this applies for every agency, city, county, state, federal. This applies for all of us, outside very few exceptions. But if we had a private entity, we'll just say hypothetically something called Bientology, right? and Bientology trained its people how to do wiretaps and surveillance. Then if I had a working relationship with somebody in Bientology, I could say, hey, I'm really trying to get access to this person's stuff over here, but I can't. And if they could, then guess what? This goes to that old saying, how do you get something into a courtroom legally? Well, if they got a fall guy and I can say, okay, I'm going to go raid this office of Bientology. Why? Because I know in that hard drive is information that I need. And in the course of going through their stuff, which is going to get a slap on the wrist, hey, don't do that stuff no more, I'm able to get the information legally now because I obtained it during another search warrant I lawfully did have. That's these workarounds that can happen. Now, put that on a massive scale. If we're going after a company that's been resistant to the government, or another church, or a political figure, and you can see how there's no legal argument you can do unless you can prove that conversation to initiate it from the beginning existed. And if these people operate in the black world like they do, you're not going to ever find that. That's terrifying.
That's terrifying. 5,000 agents. All right. In the mid-70s, the Guardian organization had developed the capabilities of compartmentalization, coded communications, counter surveillance that allowed it to function as an intelligence agency. The Snow White convictions and internal power struggles led to the downfall of the Guardian office. In 1981 and through 83, the rising influence of David Miscavige and the church conducted an internal purge. Many of the Guardian office executives were removed. The Guardian office was, quote unquote, disbanded in 1983. Its functions were not done away with. They created a new organization inside Scientology called the Office of Special Affairs. So we're not going to be the Guardian anymore. We're going to be Special Affairs. Yeah. So they continue to handle basically all of the same things: legal affairs, PR, propaganda, and investigations. Critics argue that it's the exact same thing that the CIA does. They just changed the name and kept right on going.
Just rebranded.
Just rebranded. So, in case you're wondering, as we've already pointed out, the Guardian's office bears striking similarities to any of the covert operational playbook that we've talked about routinely regarding the CIA using foreign destabilization efforts, regime change, and targeted actions against adversaries. Operation Snow White itself resembles a small, scaled-down version of an intelligence agency infiltrating a government, planting thousands of agents inside government bureaucracies to steal and destroy files. Mirrors techniques used in historical CIA operations involving penetrations of foreign governments, intelligence service, and institutions. The use of cover, employment, document theft, and compartmentalization are those classic trade crafts. Other Guardian office operations align closely with psychological operations and black bag tactics, smear campaigns, character assassinations, parallel disinformation efforts used to undermine political figures, economic pressure and attempts to bankrupt or silence media outlets, echo tactics used to destabilize opposition press in foreign operations and the US actually, Staged incidents and forgeries, fake accidents, planted documents are reminiscent of false flag and deception operations. The Clearwater Sting used classic undercover deception and elicitation techniques. Their training in lying mirrors exactly the CIA, and the development of agent handling skills further demonstrate the deliberate copying of professional intelligence practices. The exposure of Snow White through the 1977 FBI raids had a cascading effect. The seized documents not only led to the conviction of several, but revealed a broader pattern of their dirty tricks. What began as an investigation into government infiltration uncovered all of those other operations, and this mirrors how exposure of one intelligence operation can unravel an entire network of covert activities. But unlike state intelligence agencies, the Guardian Office lacked any sovereign immunity. Its operations were ultimately exposed, leading to criminal convictions and institutional restructuring or renaming, whatever. But the critics about all of this say it basically had no long-term effects on their operations because they just continued to operate. The exposure of Snow White remains one of the most significant moments in Scientology history. It revealed not just one conspiracy, but an entire covert operation that targeted judges, journalists, mayors, medical organizations, and government agencies. The tactics employed were ultimately discovered by the very documents that the church had kept on file. So that's crazy.
It's insane. It tells you that, you know, when we think about who we're fighting, we think about one bad guy. And one thing that I've learned is there's a bunch of bad guys out there, even battling bad guys. It's kind of crazy. when your team has one uniform and there's a bunch of other uniforms out there and they're mixed in with you, you know, earlier in the show when you talked about them getting trained on wiretaps, it's very complicated, folks. It's a very complicated process. I have formal training in this. I have my wiretap card. And it's not like you just like that. It's the level of professionalism in their bad guy operations is scary impressive. You know, it's I hate to say the word amazing, you know, because I don't like using that word for bad things, but it's amazing the professionalism they have as bad guys. It's crazy.
It is. So when I was reading the Murder of Karen Silkwood book, and I'm not going to remember, I know it's in this book as well, because I just went through it. There was an organization that basically was a CIA front. And they had a company, they had two companies, actually, a company and a hotel down in South Florida that if you were to walk by it too slow, you would be accosted. It had armed security all around it. And what the company did was sell all types of high-tech surveillance equipment. And the hotel that was with it was basically like a boarding school for the people that came to be trained in these surveillance techniques. And they also had the factory that created all of the surveillance equipment. And what was revealed in the Karen Silkwood book was that, and I'm sure Scientology used this same facility because it was designed for things like what Scientology was doing, not necessarily for professional police departments. However, a few years after they were set up and running, the Department of Justice began giving out grants to local police departments to buy this capability that was produced by this company and to go to training. And it first came to my attention when I was reading that Karen Silkwood book, because they wiretapped her home. And they had, as it came out in the trial later on, they had recorded conversations of her talking to union representatives that could have been gotten no other way. And when one of the private investigators that the lawyer for the Silkwood family hired, he went down to that school, and they almost killed him. And this guy's like one of those beefed up, knows everybody in the CIA, FBI, special forces, everything. He's like one of those kind of in guys. He had people in every organization. They broke into his house for going down there and asking questions and stole something from him. And when he did finally figure out that the police department in the small town in Oklahoma, that several of the police officers had been given that grant from the Department of Justice and had went down and received that training. He did get confirmation of that. But whoever one of his inside guys was, when they broke into his house, because he lived in South Florida, they stole a very sentimental pen of his, a writing pen. And he told his inside guy that however he needed to get the information to whoever stole his pen, and he knew it was from those people running that surveillance company, that they needed to return his pen, or he was going to go in there and basically kill them all. And they returned his pen. But weirdly enough, they were staying in a parsonage, part of the Catholic Church outside of this little small town in Oklahoma, as kind of like a cover place, because they didn't want to stay in any of the hotels. And whoever stole his pen snuck in there without ever being noticed and put that pen in the exact room that man was staying in. He said it freaked him the hell out.
There are skill sets out there that people just can't understand.
Yeah. So that's how those people like the Scientology get those surveillance capabilities and techniques, because anybody can go there. It is not just for government people. There was a lot of really sketchy people that this guy observed coming and going out of that location. And it was guarded like it was the White House.
One of the things in this dark world of undercover work, that maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. We'll start the story there. There's times when people need things. And again, listen, I'm not going to argue the ethics and morals of things. I'm going to hinge this hypothetical story on something General Flynn talks a lot about: unrestricted warfare. When you're fighting an evil that plays by a rule book that has no rules, and you think you're going to beat them by going by the rules, you're not. That's movies. Those are books. The only person that has the power to do that is our creator. So there's this world, we'll call it the gray world, where good guys operate. And it's my opinion that we have all recently witnessed this in action over the last few months. If I wanted to get surveillance video and layouts of certain Scientology buildings, but I couldn't because I don't have warrants, I would have to find another creative way to do that didn't look like it was a government or an intelligence operation. Alpha, where are you going with this? This is where I'm going. I'm bringing this up on the screen so you guys can see this, and you can either give pause and be like, hey, what? Or you can laugh at me and tell me I'm foolish. This is called TikTokers Raid Scientology Buildings and Post Them Online. And so this started to trend, targeting Scientology buildings, and they were running in there with cameras and recording it. And what the goal was is who can cover the most before getting caught, right? Who can cover? And you see these videos. Now, why do I think that this was an operation? Because of all the places these kids can target, why are you going to target the Scientology building, right? You could do Apple, you could do Google, you could do things that's way more cool and appealing to them. So I'm willing to bet this thought process came there. But here's the other reason. We've had takeovers at beaches. We've had takeovers at malls. We've had teen takeovers, all these places. Government never stepped in. All of a sudden, they do it to Scientology, and they're now implementing a law to come after people, come after teenagers doing these takeovers. Again, like you said, they have infiltration in these right places. If I was a good guy operating in the gray area, and I wanted to get layouts and faces and videos of people that are there actively, that's exactly how I would do it. And just let the world think that it was just a bunch of kids on TikTok that were just doing the next trend. Meanwhile, me and my guys got it mapped out. We got faces. We got all the stuff that we need, because now we can correlate those faces with other information that we do have legally. So you guys can think I'm crazy, or maybe you could be like, huh, maybe Alpha's onto something there. Just saying.
So let me finish with this, because of course I have to always go back to my known construct here. So I asked Grok if there was any overlap with USAID and Richard Bast. So wouldn't you know that in 1980, a guy by the name of Michael Hirschman, a former investigator with USAID, left USAID and joined Richard Bass Internal Investigations, Inc., the company that Bass used for his Scientology work. Hirschman reportedly received a much higher salary than everybody else. You know, almost like he was receiving his old USAID salary by putting on a temporary mask. He also received a new Cadillac, which was unheard of, and he was given an option for stock in the company. USAID investigator. So
this guy has an impressive resume.
Who?
The Hirschman guy.
Oh, yeah.
You know, he was one of the investigators for Watergate.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Counterterrorism. You name it. He was tied into the governance committee for FIFA. Like, dude.
He's the guy helping Bast with Scientology. And weirdly enough, if you go and you look at some of the operations that the Sea Organization with all of their ships, if I was to say that they had a lot of setup, let's just say, in the UK and in Denmark and Australia and Germany, France, Italy, Spain, South Africa, Latin America, Eastern Europe, and all of the UK Commonwealth. Wouldn't that be kind of weird if you've got ships going around to all of those different locations where they're smuggling drugs and arms and all of that other stuff? I'm just saying, I don't know if there's any correlation to that or not, but I do find that very interesting.
It is. This goes back to one of the points that I've made with the Strait of Hormuz. Everybody thinks that, at our ports, we got to catch biological weapons, nuclear weapons, whatever the case may be. If you know the source of where these things are coming from, and you are going to control the ships as they start to leave the source, a hell of a lot easier way to do it than waiting till it gets to your shoreline.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So that's all I got.
Man, that's all. Like, you just, jeez. This one felt like a spy novel. Like, and maybe just because of my proximity to some of my encounters with Scientology, and even now, I just find it both terrifying and fascinating. I'm gonna see. Yeah, she's still alive. The Paulette Cooper, I believe, or I think Paulette Cooper Noble. I think she's shows her as 83 years old. So I'm gonna see if I can get in contact with her. Wouldn't that be a cool conversation?
That would be a very cool conversation.
So we will see. Colonel, what do you got coming up the rest of this week? We have some new faces in the audience, and the YouTube family's been growing. I can't even keep up with how that group's been growing. So thank you guys for being here on YouTube. And just understand, this is not the only time you can see the Colonel. So Colonel, where else can these people find you?
I have an X Space and a Rumble show simulcast at 4:00 East Coast time every day. We're going through the Great Heroin Coup by Henrik Kruger right now. And I also do the noon on Friday show with War Hamster Brady, where we're revealing who all are members of the Pilgrim Society from the United States. And that's quite a lengthy list. And they're quite a bunch of nefarious people. Just another one of those hidden societies that most people have never heard of that run the world.
You guys tap into what the Colonel's doing. Again, if you this is the first time you get to see Operation Gladio and you love it, there's a playlist that I have on the channel where you can see. Again, this is the 104th chapter. So that means 103 previous episodes of Gladio. That was originally going to be 2 or 3 shows, and then the thing just took off, and I'm so glad that it did. And if you are new and you're kind of curious to why the conversations of these older models of infiltration, it's because when you recognize how it's been done back then, you see that they haven't changed the playbook to today. Maybe there's been some modifications with technology, but it's still the same. And that's why these things are important, because as things are coming to the surface and things are becoming a little bit more transparent, just a little bit, it does make it a little easier to be like, you know what? I got my Operation Gladio glasses on, and I see exactly what's going on here. Folks, remember, no sit rep tomorrow night or Overwatch in the Guardian. Reason being is me and Josh tune into the channel tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific, and 7:30 p.m. Central, if I did my Marine Corps math correctly. We'll be pre-gaming before Trump does his addressing the nation, and then after that, we'll watch it, and then afterwards, we're going to do the assessment. So depending on what he says and what he doesn't say will depend kind of how long that runs tomorrow night. And then again, Sit Rep and Overwatch and the Guardian will both return next week. So make sure you tune into that. We had a couple of Rumble rants came in tonight. We had a big audience tonight, Colonel. That makes me very, very happy to know that these people are getting exposed to you. Makes me really happy, because there's a ripple effect with that. If people get exposed to you and they go watch your stuff, then they also get exposed to War Hamster. Yeah, and they get exposed to that stuff. And this is how people start to add books of people, to the resource list. So we'll start from the bottom. Dollar for dollar, G Fontes 119 says, I'm sure Colonel Towner Watkins knows precisely where this is, but I live basically within Sea Org's headquarters in Gulf Coast, Florida. They are still on a mission to own all the property they can get here.
I do know exactly where that is.
Interesting. $100. Benjamin, soon to have President Trump's signature. From the Boom Diggity, David Miscaviage, wife, if I said that correctly. Shally hasn't been seen since 2007. Former church members suspect she has been involuntarily held at a secretive Scientology facility, possibly international base near Hemet, California. I'm going to be very careful with what I say about that facility. Reason being is they do come after and suing people. So what I will say is I have heard lots of stories surrounding the Hemet location, and there's a lot of things that, in my opinion, are very, very suspicious. Again, think about what we're talking about. One side's bordered by a wash, and the other side's bordered by a mountain range, and there's only one main road that comes into that location. This is exactly like you said, Colonel. If you wanted to do something,
as soon as you brought that up, and I see that mountain range, just because I know from a strategic perspective of setting up locations, like when we were in northern Iraq and we were trying to determine where we were going to put the different camps, mountains are very, very important from a protection standpoint.
100%. And then that mountain range that I showed you guys that the road goes through, it's right about 7 to 10 minutes to get from one side to the other. And then you have the 10 freeway. You go west to Los Angeles, or you can go east to Phoenix. You know, it's good luck. Yeah, you know, you're not very far from the southern border. So very interesting information there, Boom Diggity. Matrix Code Breaker rated the stream. Thank you. Those guys are freaking cool. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with them. I like these guys. I know they do some stuff with Space Shot too. So make sure you guys go, if they're still in the chat, you know, grab onto those guys and go follow the content they do. It's a lot of fun. And I got to ask them too. I believe they do a show on YouTube called Hold the Line. And the other night, I think it was Monday night. Yeah, because we're Wednesday. So it was Monday. It wasn't yesterday. So Monday night, I was trying to do a show title where I put Hold the Line. And there was 2 platforms. And they're going to put their names out. But one has a blue logo. One has a red logo. They wouldn't take my headline with Hold the Line in it. So I ended up changing it on that one. I think it says special broadcast now. And then it took. So, yeah, interesting. And then last one coming in from one of the OGs here, $20 from Breadmaker62. Love the Colonel. Thank you both for all you do. Semper Fortis. And thank you. And nothing over there on YouTube. So I will get to our last ad here on Rumble. And then, Colonel, I'll let you dip out. Folks, they did something really cool for 4th of July, and they weren't done. If you got a dog at home, you already know that they're more than just a pet. They're part of the family, and they're your best friend. Well, it turns out America's founding fathers felt the exact same way. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and several of the men who helped build this country all had loyal dogs by their side. Some even traveled with them during the Revolutionary War and were there for some incredible moments in American history. When I found that out, I thought, that's actually a really cool way to get kids interested in history. And it turns out a company called The Kid's Guide is already doing this. They have a guide called The Kid's Guide to the Founders' Furry Friends, and it shares the true stories and remarkable dogs that belong to America's founders. It's a beautifully illustrated, easy for kids to enjoy, and it teaches them about the people who shaped our country through the stories of the companions they loved most. Let's be honest, getting kids excited about history isn't always easy, but tell them they're about to learn about George Washington's dog, and now you got their attention. I thought it was a genuinely clever idea, and if you got kids or even grandkids who love dogs, I think they'll have a lot of fun with it too. They're running a special offer right now that includes the Kid's Guide to the Furry Founders, Friends, and some other freebies. If this sounds like something your family would enjoy, just head over to freeusadoggift.com. That's freeusadoggift.com, and that link will be in the description if you're watching the replay, or you can scan that QR code. And we had one last Rumble rant that came in, Colonel, dollar for dollar. Jason Holmes says, hey, Alpha, I wanted to ask you if I could interview you sometime for my show. I discovered you through Mike King and would love the chance to speak with you. Absolutely. Shoot me an email, alpha@thealphawarriorshow.tv. And I would also tell you, you would definitely like to do an interview with the Colonel. She's a brilliant mind, also has a brilliant military history behind her. And then I know there was another lady earlier in the chat that wrote a book. If she's still here, again, send me an email and we can connect and I can bring you on as well. Colonel, as always, it's been solid. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Good night. God bless and Semper Fi.